Happy anniversary, honey, Lena said, not looking up from her phone as she scrolled through what I assumed were yoga poses or inspirational quotes about finding your inner goddess. 23 years of marriage, and she couldn't put the damn thing down for our anniversary dinner. I'm Eddie Mallory, 46 years old, former high school English teacher turned freelance handyman after budget cuts made me redundant. I fix what's broken for a living, which is ironic considering I couldn't fix my own marriage. The boathouse grill buzzed around us, couples actually talking to each other, families laughing, the normal sounds of people who still gave a damn about the person sitting across from them. Thanks, I muttered, cutting into my overpriced steak. Really feeling the love. Lena finally glanced up, her perfectly highlighted blonde hair catching the dim restaurant lighting. At 34, she still turned heads, especially since she'd started teaching yoga 3 years ago. The transformation from frumpy housewife to Instagram-worthy wellness guru had been remarkable and expensive. Don't be dramatic, Eddie. I'm just checking the studio's social media. Engagement is down this week. God forbid people actually live their lives instead of posting about them. She rolled her eyes and returned to her screen. That's when I saw him walking toward our table. Brent Colby, Lena's business partner and self-proclaimed best friend. Tall, artificially tanned, with the kind of smile that belonged in a toothpaste commercial, and the personality of a used car salesman. Eddie! Lena! Brent's voice carried that fake enthusiasm I'd grown to despise. What a coincidence running into you two here. Coincidence, my ass. The boathouse was 20 minutes from where Brent lived, and he'd somehow managed to coincidentally show up wherever Lena and I went for the past 6 months. Brent! Lena's face lit up in a way it hadn't when she'd wished me happy anniversary. What are you doing here? Just grabbing dinner after that meeting with the new wellness retreat investors. Mind if I join you for a drink? I have some exciting news about the studio expansion. I watched my wife's eyes sparkle as she gestured to an empty chair. Of course, Eddie was just saying how he wanted to hear more about the business. I had said no such thing. In fact, I'd made it clear multiple times that I thought Brent was a parasitic wannabe entrepreneur who'd never had an original idea in his life. But here he was, sliding into our anniversary dinner like he owned the place. So, Eddie, Brent said, signaling the waitress for a drink, Lena tells me you're still doing the handyman thing. That's quaint. Keeps me busy. Unlike some people, I actually work for my money. The barb hit its mark. Brent's smile tightened slightly, but he recovered quickly. Well, we can't all be blessed with such practical skills. Lena shot me a warning look. Brent's been working incredibly hard on expanding the studio. He's brought in 3 new corporate wellness contracts this month. Impressive, I said flatly. And how exactly does that work? Do you demonstrate the poses, or do you just watch Lena do them? Eddie! Lena's voice carried that sharp edge I'd been hearing more and more lately. Brent handles the business side. I handle the instruction. It's called division of labor. Right. And what's your cut of these contracts, Brent? 50% for watching my wife bend over in yoga pants? The table went silent. Brent's face flushed red, and Lena looked mortified. Around us, other diners continued their conversations, oblivious to the tension crackling at table 12. That's completely inappropriate, Lena hissed. You're embarrassing yourself. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like I'm the only one at this table who isn't pretending this is normal? Brent leaned forward, his voice low and condescending. Eddie, I understand you're feeling threatened by Lena's success, but taking it out on me isn't going to solve your problems. My problems? I laughed, loud enough that the couple at the next table glanced over. My problem is sitting right here pretending to be my wife's business partner when we all know what's really going on. Lena's face went white. Stop it, right now. Or what? You'll go cry to your best friend Brent about how mean your husband is? Oh, wait, you already do that. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. The restaurant seemed to quiet around us, sensing drama. Brent remained seated, but his hands were clenched on the table. You know what, Brent? You want to play house with my wife so badly? You can have her. But first, let me give you a little anniversary present. I reached across the table and grabbed Brent by his expensive polo shirt, pulling him halfway across the table before driving my fist into his perfectly straight nose. The crack was audible, and blood immediately began streaming down his face. Eddie! Lena screamed. Brent fell back into his chair, hands covering his nose, eyes watering. You psycho! You broke my nose! Oops, I said, flexing my knuckles. That was supposed to be a handshake. The restaurant erupted in chaos. Other diners were standing, some filming with their phones, others calling for the manager. Lena was crying, trying to help Brent with napkins while shooting daggers at me with her eyes. "You're insane," she sobbed. "Completely insane." "Maybe, but at least I'm not a liar." I pulled out my wallet and threw $200 on the table. "That should cover dinner and Brent's therapy. You two enjoy the rest of your evening." I walked out of the Boathouse Grill with every eye in the place following me. My hand throbbed, but for the first time in months, I felt alive. As I reached my truck, I could hear Lena screaming my name from inside the restaurant. Let her scream. The show was just getting started. Hash hash. Chapter 2. Home Truths. The first thing I did when I got home was change the locks. 23 years of marriage, and it took me exactly 47 minutes to erase Lena's access to our house. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent years fixing other people's broken doors, and now I was finally securing my own. Our house sat on the shore of Moosehead Lake, a modest 2-story colonial that we'd bought when I still had teacher's benefits, and Lena was content being a housewife. The mortgage was killing us now, but I'd be damned if I was going to let her waltz back in here like nothing had happened. My phone started buzzing around midnight. Lena, of course. "Eddie, what the hell is wrong with you? Open this door right now." I could hear her outside, probably standing in the driveway in her anniversary dress, wondering why her key didn't work. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and settled into my recliner. "Eddie, I know you're in there. This is my house too." "Not anymore, sweetheart." The pounding on the door continued for another 10 minutes before she gave up. My phone buzzed with a text. "We need to talk. This is ridiculous." I turned off my phone and went to bed in my own house, in my own bed, for the first time in months without wondering where my wife really was. The next morning brought a parade of texts from Lena's friends and yoga studio clients. Word traveled fast in our small Maine town, especially when it involved public violence and marital drama. "Eddie, this is Sarah from the studio. What you did to Brent was completely unacceptable. Lena is devastated." "Eddie, it's Jennifer Walsh. I heard about last night. You should be ashamed of yourself. Brent is such a sweet man." "This is Amy from book club. Lena told us everything. You need help." I deleted them all without responding. Let them think what they wanted. They'd been taking Lena's side for months anyway, probably knowing exactly what was going on while I played the oblivious husband. Around noon, I decided to do some detective work. Lena had been spending more and more time at the studio, claiming she needed to work late or meet with potential clients. She'd also become mysteriously protective of her phone and laptop, taking them everywhere and never leaving them unattended. But she'd forgotten about her hiding spot. Years ago, when we'd first moved into the house, Lena had shown me a loose floorboard in our bedroom closet where she kept her grandmother's jewelry. "Just in case we ever get robbed," she'd said. "They'd never think to look here." I pried up the board and found more than jewelry: a burner phone, a small notebook filled with dates and times, and a manila envelope stuffed with receipts from hotels I'd never been to. My hands shook as I powered on the phone. Hundreds of text messages between Lena and Brent, going back 8 months. Photos that made my stomach turn. Plans for weekend getaways while I was working. Discussions about how to handle the Eddie problem. One text thread from last week made me see red. "Brent, when are you going to tell him?" Lena: "Soon. I just need to figure out the financial stuff first. The house, his tools, everything." Brent: "You deserve so much better than this, babe. He's holding you back." Lena: "I know. God, I can't wait to be done with this charade. The anniversary dinner will be perfect timing. I'll tell him after." Brent: "What if he doesn't take it well?" Lena: "Then you'll be there to protect me. My knight in shining armor." I wanted to throw the phone against the wall, but I controlled myself. This was evidence. This was ammunition. I photographed every message, every photo, every receipt. Then I carefully put everything back exactly as I'd found it and replaced the floorboard. So she'd planned to leave me. The anniversary dinner was supposed to be her big exit interview, with Brent there for moral support. Instead, I'd given them both a preview of what happens when you corner a man with nothing left to lose. My phone rang. Lena: "Eddie, please, we need to talk about this like adults." "Adults don't sneak around behind their spouse's back for 8 months. Silence. Then: "How did you figure it out?" "Jesus, Lena, you weren't exactly subtle. The late nights, the new clothes, the way you light up every time Prince Charming walks into a room." "It's not what you think." "Really? Because I think my wife has been screwing her business partner while I work 60-hour weeks to pay for her yoga studio dream. Am I close?" More silence. Eddie, I never meant for it to happen. It just did. Spare me the romance novel bullcrap. You made a choice, multiple choices, for 8 months. I was going to tell you. When? After you'd figured out how to take half of everything I've worked for? It's not about money. Everything's about money, Lena. Especially when you're planning to screw over the guy who's been paying your bills while you find yourself. She started crying. I needed something more. Something exciting. You and we've been like roommates for years. So instead of talking to your husband, you decided to audition for his replacement. How's that working out for you? Brent's nose is broken. He might press charges. I laughed. Tell Brent I'll give him something else to press charges about if he keeps sniffing around my wife. Ex-wife. I want a divorce, Eddie. Congratulations. You want a lot of things. Doesn't mean you're going to get them. I hung up and poured another bourbon. Outside, Mrs. Gilmore from next door was tending her garden, probably hoping to catch some gossip. She'd been our neighbor for 15 years and had the hearing of a bat and the memory of an elephant. Time to give her something worth remembering. Hash hash. Chapter 3, The Reckoning. 3 days after the anniversary dinner disaster, I was in my garage organizing tools when Joey Martinez pulled into my driveway. Joey had been one of my students back when I taught high school, a good kid who'd grown up to be a decent cop. He was also one of the few people in town who hadn't immediately taken Lena's side in our marital drama. Mr. M, he said, climbing out of his patrol car, how you holding up? Been better. You here officially or just checking on your old teacher? Little of both. Got a complaint filed yesterday. Brent Colby says you assaulted him at the boathouse. I set down my wrench and faced him. And what do you think about that? Joey shrugged. I think Brent Colby's been asking for a punch in the face for about 5 years now. But that doesn't mean I can ignore a complaint. Fair enough. You arresting me? Nah. Turns out the boathouse's security cameras were mysteriously malfunctioning that night. Funny how technology fails right when you need it most. I smiled. Technology's unreliable these days. Very unreliable. But Eddie, you need to be smart about this. Lena's been talking to people, painting you as the unstable husband who can't handle her success. You keep giving her ammunition, and she's going to use it against you in divorce court. Let her try. Joey studied my face. You got something on her, don't you? I didn't answer, but my expression must have said enough. Just be careful, okay? Whatever you're planning, make sure it's legal. I'd hate to have to arrest my favorite teacher. After Joey left, I spent the afternoon developing my strategy. Lena wanted to play games? Fine, but she'd forgotten that I'd taught high school for 20 years. I knew how to handle manipulative teenagers, and my wife was acting like one. That evening, I drove to the yoga studio. Lena's car was there, along with Brent's BMW, the one with the slightly dented hood where his face had hit it when I punched him. I parked across the street and waited. At 9 o'clock, they came out together. Lena was laughing at something Brent said, her hand on his arm. His nose was bandaged, but he was milking the injury for all the sympathy he could get. They stood by her car for several minutes, talking quietly before Brent leaned down and kissed her, right there in the parking lot, under the streetlights, where anyone could see. I took photos with my phone, then followed them to Brent's rental house on the outskirts of town, a shabby little place that he was probably getting for next to nothing, since no legitimate business would pay him enough to afford anything decent. They went inside together. I sat in my truck for 2 hours, watching the lights in the windows, imagining what they were doing in there. Planning their future together, probably. Laughing about how they'd fooled the stupid husband for so long. When Lena finally came out, it was almost midnight. She looked around nervously before getting in her car, like she was afraid someone might be watching. She was right to be afraid. The next morning, I called in sick to my current job, replacing the deck on a lake house, and spent the day preparing. I had copies made of all the photos and text messages from Lena's burner phone. I researched Maine divorce law and discovered that adultery was still grounds for fault-based divorce, which could affect property division and alimony. Most importantly, I started making phone calls. Mrs. Gilmore, it's Eddie from next door. I was wondering if you might have noticed any unusual activity at my house over the past few months when I was at work. Oh, Eddie, I'm so glad you called. I wasn't sure if I should say anything, but yes. There have been cars in your driveway quite often. That nice BMW that belongs to Lena's business partner? How often would you say? Oh, at least twice a week for the past several months. Sometimes he'd be there for hours. I just assumed you knew. Perfect. My next call was to Tom Bradley, who owned the hardware store and was married to one of Lena's yoga clients. Tom, it's Eddie Mallory. I'm calling because I thought you should know that your wife might be getting some interesting information at yoga class. Information that isn't exactly accurate. What kind of information? The kind that makes me look like an abusive husband and Lena look like an innocent victim. I just wanted you to know that there are two sides to every story, and Lena's side includes 8 months of cheating with her business partner. Jesus, Eddie, I'm sorry. Karen's been coming home with all kinds of stories about how you've been controlling and jealous. I'm sure she has. Just keep an open mind, okay? The truth has a way of coming out. I made 6 more calls that day. To the parents of kids I'd taught. To customers whose homes I'd worked on. To friends who'd known me long before Lena decided she needed something more exciting than her marriage. By evening, the seeds were planted. Now I just had to wait for them to grow. My phone buzzed with a text from Lena. People are asking me questions about us. What did you tell them? I replied. The truth. You should try it sometime. Eddie, please, can we meet somewhere and talk about this rationally? Sure. How about the boathouse? I hear they have great anniversary specials. She didn't respond. That night, I sat on my back deck overlooking the lake, drinking bourbon and planning my next move. Lena wanted a divorce. She could have one, but she wasn't going to walk away with half of everything I'd worked for while she played house with her boy toy. The war was just beginning, and I intended to win. #. Chapter 4. Scorched Earth. A week after my phone campaign, the tide began to turn. Tom Bradley's wife, Karen, stopped going to yoga classes. 2 other clients canceled their memberships. Word was spreading through our small town like wildfire, and for once, it wasn't entirely in Lena's favor. But Lena wasn't going down without a fight. Eddie's having some kind of breakdown, I overheard her telling someone on the phone when I drove past the studio. He's calling people, spreading lies about me. I'm actually afraid of what he might do. The victim act was classic Lena. When manipulation didn't work, she played helpless. It had gotten her out of speeding tickets, late fees, and uncomfortable conversations for years. But this time, she was playing against someone who knew all her moves. I decided it was time to escalate. Friday night, I drove to Murphy's Tavern, the local dive bar where Brent liked to hold court with his stories about his various business ventures. Sure enough, he was there, surrounded by a small group of guys who were either too drunk or too polite to walk away from his bullcrap. And then this psycho just sucker punched me, Brent was saying, gesturing to his still bandaged nose. Completely unprovoked. I'm thinking about pressing charges, but Lena asked me not to. She's too kind-hearted for her own good. I walked up to the bar and ordered a beer, close enough to hear every word. The guy's obviously unstable, Brent continued. Lena's been walking on eggshells for months, afraid to set him off. She finally got the courage to leave him, and this is how he reacts. That's an interesting story, I said, turning around. Mind if I add some details you left out? The group around Brent went quiet. Brent's face went pale under his tan. Eddie, I didn't see you there. I bet you didn't. You were too busy rewriting history for your audience. I stepped closer, and Brent instinctively backed up. See, the thing is, Brent, these guys know me. I taught half their kids. I fixed their roofs and their plumbing and their broken steps. They know I'm not the kind of guy who throws punches without a good reason. You attacked me for no reason, Brent said, but his voice lacked conviction. No reason? I laughed. How about 8 months of reasons? 8 months of sneaking around with my wife while I paid for your little yoga studio adventure? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was news to most of them. That's not, Brent started. Not what? Not true? Because I've got about 300 text messages that say otherwise. Want me to read some of them out loud? Brent's face went from pale to green. You went through Lena's phone? I went through the burner phone she bought specifically to communicate with you. The one she hid in our bedroom like a teenager sneaking cigarettes. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the screenshots I'd taken. Here's a good one. God, I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. Eddie's so clueless. That was from 3 weeks ago, Brent. Right around the time you were telling me what a great guy I was for supporting Lena's dreams. The crowd was fully engaged now. Nothing entertained a small town like a good cheating scandal, especially when it involved someone as smug as Brent Colby. Or how about this one? I continued. The sex with Eddie has been dead for years. With you, I feel alive again. That's my wife, Brent, talking about our private life with the man who was supposed to be her business partner. Stop, Brent said weakly. Why? Getting uncomfortable? Because I've got dozens more, including the ones where you two planned to tell me at our anniversary dinner. Remember that? The dinner where I attacked you for no reason? I stepped even closer, close enough that Brent had to crane his neck to look up at me. You want to know what the real reason was, Brent? The real reason I broke your nose? He didn't answer. Because you sat at my table, on my anniversary, and pretended to be my friend while you were screwing my wife. Because you looked me in the eye and lied to my face while planning to destroy my marriage. Because you're a parasitic piece of crap who's never earned an honest dollar in his life. The bar had gone completely silent. Even the bartender had stopped washing glasses. So yeah, I hit you. And if you keep running your mouth about what a victim you are, I'll hit you again. The only difference is next time, I won't stop at your nose. Brent tried to push past me toward the door, but I grabbed his arm. Where are you going, tough guy? I thought you wanted to tell everyone your side of the story. Let go of me. Or what? You'll call the cops? Go ahead. I'd love to explain to them why I have photos of you and my wife going into your house together at midnight. I released his arm, and he practically ran for the exit. The bar erupted in conversation the moment he was gone. Jesus, Eddie, said Mike Patterson, a plumber I'd worked with on several jobs. I had no idea. Most people didn't. Lena's good at keeping secrets. Well, she was. I finished my beer and left a 20 on the bar. Thanks for listening, guys. Sometimes the truth needs an audience. As I walked to my truck, I felt a grim satisfaction. Brent's reputation in town was now officially shot. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. #. Chapter 5. The Final Act. 2 weeks later, Lena made her biggest mistake yet. She decided to fight back publicly. She organized what she called a community healing circle at the yoga studio, ostensibly to discuss dealing with toxic relationships and emotional abuse. But everyone in town knew it was really about me. I found out about it from Joey, who'd heard it from his girlfriend. She's planning to tell her side of the story, he warned me. Make herself look like the victim of an abusive marriage. You might want to stay away from that part of town tonight. Instead, I decided to attend. I arrived at the studio just as Lena was beginning her presentation. About 20 women were seated in a circle on yoga mats, nodding sympathetically as my wife explained how she'd been trapped in a marriage with a controlling, violent man who couldn't handle her personal growth. For months, I lived in fear, she said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, never knowing when he might explode again. When I finally found the courage to ask for space, he became even more dangerous. I stepped into the room. That's a beautiful story, Lena. Mind if I add some footnotes? The room went dead silent. Several women looked genuinely frightened, like they expected me to start throwing punches. Lena's face went white. Eddie, you can't be here. This is a private session. Is it? Because I heard you were discussing my marriage? I thought I might have something to contribute to the conversation. I walked to the center of the circle and looked around at the faces staring back at me. I recognized most of them. Neighbors, former students' mothers, women I'd known for years. Ladies, I want you to know that everything Lena just told you is true. I am controlling. I do have anger issues, and I did become violent. Gasps rippled through the group. Lena looked confused, like this wasn't going according to any script she'd imagined. I became controlling when I discovered my wife was using our joint bank account to pay for hotel rooms where she was cheating on me. I developed anger issues when I found out she'd been planning to leave me while pretending to work on our marriage. And yes, I became violent when her lover showed up to our anniversary dinner to provide moral support while she destroyed our 23-year marriage. I pulled out my phone and held it up. Would anyone like to see the text messages where my loving wife calls me pathetic and a deadweight? Or maybe the photos she sent to her boyfriend while I was working 60-hour weeks to pay for this yoga studio? Stop, Lena whispered. Why? I thought this was about healing, about truth. Don't these women deserve to know the whole truth about toxic relationships? I scrolled through my phone and found one of the most damaging text threads. Here's a good one. Lena texting Brent. Eddie's working late again. Come over. We can use the bed this time instead of the couch. That was sent 3 months ago, ladies. From our house. Our bed. Several women were staring at Lena in shock. Others were gathering their things, clearly uncomfortable with the direction this had taken. Or how about this planning session? Lena, I need to make sure I get half of everything when I leave him. The house is worth at least $300K. Brent, Don't worry, babe. I know a lawyer who specializes in taking men to the cleaners. Those are private messages, Lena said desperately. You had no right to discover that my wife was cheating on me, to find out that she was planning to financially destroy me. You're right, Lena. I should have just kept paying the bills while you and Brent planned my downfall. I looked around the circle one more time. Ladies, let me give you some real advice about toxic relationships. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. When they lie to your face while stabbing you in the back, don't make excuses for them. And when they try to play victim after they've been caught, don't fall for it. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Lena, the divorce papers will be served tomorrow. Adultery is still grounds for fault-based divorce in Maine, which means you won't be getting half of anything. I walked out of the studio and got in my truck. Through the window, I could see the women inside talking animatedly, some pointing at Lena, others shaking their heads. Her healing circle had turned into a public execution, and she was the one on trial. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Brent. We need to talk." I replied, "No, we don't. I'm leaving town, moving back to Boston. I never meant for things to go this far." "Smart move. Don't come back." "What about Lena?" I thought about that for a moment, then typed, "What about her? She's your problem now." But Brent was already gone. By morning, his rental house was empty, and his BMW was nowhere to be seen. He'd abandoned Lena just like he'd abandoned every other mess he'd made in his 38 years of life. Lena called me crying, begging me to reconsider the divorce, claiming she'd made a terrible mistake and wanted to work things out. But it was too late for that. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Due to the adultery evidence, Lena received minimal alimony and no share of the house. The yoga studio closed within 3 months. Turns out most of the clients had been coming to support me, not her. I kept the house by the lake and my handyman business. Lena moved to Portland, where nobody knew her story. I heard she got a job at a corporate gym, teaching classes to people who didn't care about her personal life. As for me, I learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't elaborate schemes or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes it's just telling the truth and letting other people draw their own conclusions. I'm still fixing what's broken for a living. The difference is, now I know when something can't be repaired, and I'm not afraid to throw it away and start over. Some things are worth fighting for. Others are just worth walking away from. And sometimes the best apology tour is the one where nobody apologizes at all.